So, good afternoon, everybody. Lovely to see you here. Welcome. This is a talk that personally I'm really excited about. It's been a long time coming to this point in terms of a journey. And Stuart Dow, our lovely co-chair of Tamar Dowsers, is going to be talking about his journey and King Arthur's Hall. So thank you very much for coming today, and hope you enjoy the talk. Over to you, Stu.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that I want to bring out to you guys here is the fact that a lot of the work that my brain and body has done on the moor is about living off the land, living with the land, listening to the land. So I'd like to introduce Helen at this point, who is going to take you on a journey into King Arthur's Hall.
Cheers. Okay. So do I have to hold it down?
Yeah, just sit towards you.
Okay. Right. If you could just make yourself comfortable, I'd like you to uncross your legs, put your feet on the ground so you're in touch with Mother Earth. Just close your eyes, let yourself relax, sink into your chair. You can let your hands just rest gently on your lap and just follow the breath till you're nice and calm. For some of us, it's been a bit of a traumatic travel to get here. So just follow the breath. In front of you is Bodmin Moor. There's a track that goes through the grass. Follow the track. It's a lovely day, calm, sunny. All is well with the world. And as you're walking on the horizon, you see this almost a shadow shape. And as you get closer, you can make out King Arthur's Hall. It's got a fence around it. And in the southwest corner, there is a gate or a stile. So you can choose how you enter this sacred place. As you go in, you can go up the embankment and go round. You can go in till you're in the level ground where the stones and the spring are. And I'm just going to leave you there for a little while. See what impressions you get, see how you feel. See if it inspires any thoughts or images. And I'll leave you there for a while and then I'll call you back. Now it's time to return. You make your way to the gate and the stile. Come out of the hall and just sit on the grass. You have paper and pen that was left on your chair. So as you come back, if you would write down any notes, impressions, stories of what you've just seen or experienced, and we will share that later. Thank you. If you're having trouble coming back, shake your hands, your fingers, toes. Take a deep breath.
You all managed to write down what you needed to write down, or shall I give a little longer?
I'm good.
You're good? All good? Right then, well, there's a young me with a dog called Chips, because he was a sausage dog. And either side of my parents, my father was taken into banking courtesy of his father. He said, go and be a banker. That's good for you. Dad didn't want to be a banker. My grandfather was a farmer. Dad wanted to carry on working with the land himself. He loved being on his allotment. He loved digging. He loved gardening. My mother also loved digging, loved gardening, very keen on gardening. So I was given a patch at the end of the garden to dig in. So I guess from an early age, unbeknown to me, I'd become a digger. And it's thanks to those two that I was brought into the directions I was brought into. I also would like to add at this point, not only to dedicate this to my parents, but also to dear Denise Lockwood, who long ago, when I first started digging at King Arthur's Hall, she said, Stuart, you must do a talk on King Arthur's Hall. I went, no, thank you. No. Well, time went on, and things changed. But eventually, so this is dedicated to you, Denise. Thank you. One of the things that was important to my mother was archaeology. And I lived in Cheam, Sutton area in South London. Nearby was a place called Nonsuch Palace, which was one of Henry VIII's glorious palaces during his cloth of gold vibe, when he was making things as grand and as amazing as possible. And he wanted to show off all the time. So he decided to build a palace. There was none such as this palace. It was so superb. And there was an archaeological dig going on my mum took me to. So that was my first taste of archaeology. And I was fascinated by it, fascinated by what's under the ground, to reveal things, to reveal the past, to learn about the past. That was what it once looked like. It's a shame it no longer exists. There was a result of gambling, it no longer exists. The later owner couldn't manage to keep it going because they were spending far too much money on the cards. So it eventually had to be sold. Nobody wanted to go and live in it. As a result of that, it had to be taken apart. But it was the most glorious place. The most wonderful pieces have been found during the excavation. I dowsed the site much, much, much later, and that's King Henry VIII's bedroom over there, southwest side of it. So that was my, if you like, my local inspiration. That got me going. After a lifetime of digging, landscaping in London, it was time to move to Cornwall, to my own palace in Cornwall, which happened in 2010. There's a water meadow down by the River Inny, where my wife and I settled, having escaped London at long last. And as a landscaper, I was thrilled to have 2 acres of land up the hill behind me there. So I went out to play, digging in the garden, digging away, landscaping away, making the place really exciting and fun. So that was how I sort of got into being down here, really. And the moment I got down here, I felt captivated by the land. I just wanted more of it. I was all over the moor, over Bodmin Moor, everywhere, just investigating, using the Ordnance Survey map a lot. I used the map a lot because I'd got involved with ley lines. And before moving to here, I was introduced to ley lines via this book. And I thought, I'm getting it. I was getting it. And so I opened my road atlas one day and I thought, okay, so let's see if there's a LEY, village or town, and a ton, village or town or something. Where shall I choose? Grimes Grave. That's a Neolithic site where all the flints were manufactured and created. Really important industrial site for the time. So no doubt it would have had a pathway to and from it. So I found a lay and a ton and a lay. So I worked my way down the map, the road atlas, went to the next page, went to the next page, all the way down. And I was getting near Luton, and I thought, this is looking interesting. Well, yes, it did. It went to Stonehenge. I discovered there was a lay going from Graham's all the way down to Stonehenge. That convinced me that Alfred Watkins was into something. He knew what he was doing. And that was the beginning of my interest in lays. So now I'm down in Cornwall, interested in lays. Another book that had been a huge influence on me, that I'd read before I came down, was this book, Hamlet's Mill, an essay investigating the origins of human knowledge and its transmission through myths. So we've got all sorts of myths. There's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, there's Pinocchio, and lots of others as well. They are all stories based on stars and star alignments and star celestial places. The myths have a story to tell. It's a celestial cosmology. So shortly after being down here, when I'd come down here on holidays previously, I discovered this amazing shop down in Boscastle. And so I went into this shop, and once I'd moved down here, said to the guy, I'm in the area now, I've moved in, and it's great welcome, he says, this guy. And so we're talking about synchronicities, and he said, we're chatting away, and we're standing by some of the books there, which I'd been looking at, and he went, hold on a minute, talking of synchronicities. He disappeared out of the shop upstairs somewhere, came back with this book in his hand, just handed it to me, and it's like, this must be the writer, this must be the author. It was Paul Broadhurst, who'd handed me The Secret Land as a welcome to Cornwall. He signed it, May Merlin and Arthur awaken. I'd become enchanted. Okay, so the book Secret Land took me all over the place. I was learning lots of landscapes, and Paul really does give a wonderfully... I recommend buying The Secret Land. If you want to know about this area, there's no better book to learn from. So I devoured it and going all over the place. And then I discovered that he had another book. Next time I went in the shop saying, thank you for that book, it was awesome. And he gives me The Son of the Serpent. Well, I buy The Son of the Serpent. And that's great. So I'm like, okay, the ley line thing. Yeah, this is cool. I'm into this. And I realised on looking at the book and the maps and learning all about it and finding that it's all in my area, I can go out and investigate it. How exciting. So it was a bit of a thing going on now. I've got a purpose. And I looked at one of the pages and opened it, and it's like, that cottage that I lived in is right on the actual alignment that the waves go through, the Mary and Michael line. I was slightly south of the Mary line and slightly north of the Michael line. So I'd found myself living in that wide band of energy that is the Michael-Mary line. I also got involved in Tamar Dowsers and dowsing. I was captivated by ley lines and energies and all this stuff now by this time. And I discovered there was a local advert somewhere, I think it was in a church magazine or something, an advert for dowsing, learn to dowse at Kit Hill. Oh, great, let's do it. So me and my wife went up there, bought some rods off this bloke out the back of his car. And here I am with the rods. And he was busy telling things to other people. So we went up onto the top area of Kit Hill. And I thought, okay, right then. I wonder if there's an energy line up here. So I'm walking along like that, and wow, that moment is just unbelievable. I know you've all experienced it. So I kept back in my corner a bit, as it were. And then Alan, for that's who it was, gathered everybody together. he introduced the thing. I'd already preempted it, as it were. So he introduced everybody, and he said, right, I'm going to show you where there's an energy line. And I mean, that's where I found it. That was a really exciting moment. And as a result of that, I thought, okay, there's more into this. And through Alan Neil, I discovered the Tamar Dowsers, and here you all are, and here I am. Part of my wandering around the moor, getting up, right, I'm into the Templars. So all of a sudden, temple, right, got to go there. So we drove to the temple, the church, and I got a camera and decided to do a bit of YouTubing by this time, and filmed my journey at the impressions I had that were at Temple. After we'd been to Temple Church, I mean, okay, the next place I want to go to, Jan, I want to go up to that place that we've read about, King Arthur's Hall. So that was the journey we went to next. We were off to King Arthur's Hall. I'd been captured by the moor. I couldn't get enough of it. And it was the expanse of it, that openness, that huge horizon. And if you've lived in the cities and things, you know how nice it is to experience this. It certainly was for me as a landscaper. I was in my element. And there it is, King Arthur's Hall, with Jan and I going, what the F is this? Is this place? I was absolutely enchanted. I'd read about it by this time, but this was my first experience up there. And if you've been up there, you'll know there's something that happens when you're up there. There's something you'll experience. You'll go to another place. It's another world. It's of another time. But what is this time? What is this place? I had no idea. It's just a huge enigma, just a mystery. Situated on the moor like that, with those wonderful tors around. You've got Brown Willie over there, the one to this side, and then you've got Routor is the other one. Well, I was still captivated by it. Jan decided that she'd seen a circle somewhere, Rembrandt's down it turned out to be, so she wandered off towards that. I couldn't leave the hall. I just stood around and looked around, gazed around the place. I was definitely enchanted. That convinced me. It's a bit like seeing a white unicorn or a white deer. Seeing that went, it was only after I did this film I saw that. I thought, yeah, no wonder. Right, so I wanted to give something back to the land. I'd been a landscaper, I'd earned my money out of landscaping, and I now wanted to donate something back as a retired person. I'd found through a Facebook connection, I'd found an archaeology group, Carradon Archaeology group, that wanted to get volunteers for St Piran's Oratory down Cornwall way. And I volunteered for it. And I got accepted for the volunteer, saying, I'm a landscaper, surely I'll be useful. And they accepted me. So the large photograph there is from Cornwall Today. And that's the exposed oratory. The picture this side, that's when we started digging. It'd been covered by dune, and our task was to find it again, to uncover the oratory. And there's a happy crew down at the bottom there that uncovered it. During this dig was organised by a guy called James Gossip, who will figure later on in the story. I got to know so many people down there, so many lovely people. I made friends. I felt totally in Cornwall. I get further deep into Cornwall because when I met James Gossip, he said there was another dig going on, a small one at Rames Head, to dig out an Arcadian pebble seat and expose it. So we would get all the pebbles out and the seat thing, and it looked lovely what we were doing. We could see this thing coming out. Well, amongst the guys that was down on his knees, scraping and cleaning, was the guy there with the baseball hat on, a guy called Roy Goot. And he said that he would very much like to use me and my truck, I had a four-wheel drive truck, to go onto Bodmin Moor to do some digging that he was doing with a group called Time Seekers. They want to discover something called Liskernick Stone Row. I don't think it's very clear on the screen here, but the truck's right over there. There's the stone row that goes all the way through there. In this picture here, the row went originally that far. We prodded and found, and it doubled the length of the row. Roy did a write-up about it because he was well in with all the local archaeological people, and that was a picture of us lot going out through there. In the middle of the picture, you've got Chris Caldwell, who will also figure later in the story, and Anne Preston Jones wearing pink, who's also going to later be in the story. The lady in the green coat with the orange scarf, you might know her as a Cornish bird, Elizabeth Dale. She was part of the group as well. So more digging going on. I just can't stop digging, can I? I can't stop digging. James Gossip was doing another dig, Tintagel. Well, Christ, I can't not go to Tintagel to dig. I mean, that's just so important. Please, can I come along? Yes, I got accepted. So you probably know quite a bit about the Tintagel dig and what they've found there and how they've realised that they're not so sure about the Arthur story, these archaeologists, but they're quite happy to accept that there was a very important trading point, and it was basically a hierarchical family that controlled that point, that place. There was all sorts of stuff to be found, lots of early pottery. On the bottom picture there, you'll see that I'm digging away, trying to expose something, and there's Jackie, the other leader, Jackie Nowakowski, on the other side. And we found some connected bits of bones, articulated bones they're called, and so we were digging those out. Now they got dates from that bone, which was handy. So that's another lovely experience. Again, getting to meet lots of local people, lots of friends. Because I was involved with dowsing by this time, I'd also got involved through a friend of mine with a Facebook group. I don't know Facebook. You'll be good at it. Do a bit of Facebook. You know, you can run this site that I'm not doing anymore. It's an Earth Energies group. You're into the Earth Energies, I can tell, because you posted stuff about it. So I started running this Earth Energies and Alignments group on Facebook, which became moderately popular, because I was fascinated with the subject and kept posting lots of things all the time. Well, I suddenly realised that, hey, this is a good opportunity to get a whole bunch of people together. And let's take them out dowsing and let's see what they think of King Arthur's Hall. We had a wonderful September day, 14th of September. It was an Indian summer, beautifully warm. You'll see some of yourselves in that photograph here. And some of the members were from my Facebook group, and I gave them no information about the hall. I just said, see what you find. And I gave them a piece of paper, a bit like I've done with you today, and they wrote down answers to various questions of what they thought. And then we collated it. 50% found water lines, mostly east and west. 50% dowsed that it was a site created for an astronomical purpose, which was, given that they had not read Paul Broadhurst's article, I found that particularly relevant. 25% agreed on a north-south alignment energy line with two possible weaker lines. Re the purpose of the site, The water was considered essential to its raison d'etre, and the idea of community honouring of the waters and of bathing in the reflected stars at night was dowsed. The stones were most dowsed as representative of ancestors and as place marks for certain community members of the group to be positioned. For a date, 30% of the group dowsed a mid-Neolithic period, early Bronze period. 1 or 2 felt energy vibrations along the stones as if a protective area was created by the guardian of the place around the pool, and that was still in force. Well, that's what I think we feel when we go in there. It's a haven. 30% dowsed the presence of burial and or cremation, and that was in the northeast corner. 20% suggested via their dowsing that the stones acted as a device to draw the waters from the spring and to enhance its sanctity. As I was involved in Time Seekers, I had been talking with Roy about King Arthur's Hall quite a lot, and Roy went, yeah, it's a special place, isn't it? Very special. So we'd already met Chris Caldwell of the AONAB, and he'd come out to us and said, there's a project I want to do. Are there any special places that you'd like us to investigate? And Roy and I instantly said, yeah, for sure. Come out to King Arthur's Hall and see what you think of it. We did. We took him out there. And he was just like, this needs some more investigation. Because it's in a dilapidated state. One of the ideas was we wanted to bring it back to a better quality state. And the fencing was down, the animals were misusing it, all this sort of thing. So it was agreed to do a clearance out there. You can see now James Gossip has come into the scene. He's the guy with the woolly hat in the front centre. You've got Chris Caldwell next, Roy behind with a cap on, me having a slurp of a thermos, and some other ladies that were along as well. We did a clearance there, and so we're now progressing towards, we're teasing it. Roy and I are teasing it. We want to get this sorted. So we get them up there. We get an archaeologist up there, and we do a first clearance, which was what it was basically all about. Get started on it. Now, the Time Seekers group, we had the good opportunity through an archaeological friend of mine from the Tintagel dig of meeting up with a guy called Malcolm Wright, who came along to do geophys work. We'd been given permission by Historic England and Anne Preston-Jones to do geophys work all the way around the outside. We weren't allowed in. All the way around the outside. The idea was that maybe there's some hut circles there. Maybe there's some evidence of ceremonial sites or something to do with the population that once was involved in running the site, if that's what it was. So we started doing geophys work there, which was then obviously handed in to the authorities, the Historic England and that. While I was geophysiing, it's like using a Zimmer frame. Every metre you put these pins into the ground and the resistance is measured. While I was in a certain area of it, this area here, I thought, hold on a minute, this area feels a bit different. I guess as you get tuned into dowsing, you're more aware of things like that. So after I'd done my geophysing bit, I went back to it, got the rod, and you can see them here, these points. There's a sort of a blobby shape on here, and the blobby shape it's like I think it was 5 points. The rod would take me, and it would turn, and there was this sort of jellyfishy like starfish on the ground through there. I thought, okay, that's right. I made some notes of it, which is the centrepiece. On the left-hand side, you'll see that's it. Malcolm pointed it out to me. He said, you know that bit you dowsed? It's shown up. He was amazed. I wasn't. Here's my reference to your dowsing. Before any surveying took place, the irregular stone area on the west side was dowsed and identified by a member of the Time Seekers group. Dowsing for stone has none of the established scientific principles of geophysical resistance measurement. However, the author, because he was writing this report, was amazed at the similarity between the high spots identified with the Dowser and the subsequent results. So that was like, yeah, right, nice one. We know, don't we? There was a second clearance up there a bit later on. So we'd hooked the ONAB people, Roy and I. We'd now got another senior archaeologist along to talk about the hall. Roy talked about the hall. We were with Anne Preston-Jones of Historic England and Peter Herring. Now, Chris introduces Roy Goot who is our leader of Time Seekers, and he states his case on the importance of King Arthur's Hall. To him, and for me, is the jewel in the crown of Cornwall's archaeology, Cornwall's ancient sites. And then Peter Herring got up and said his thing about his theory of the hall, which was that he thought it was an animal pound. I said nothing. I think it was best to. I had my own ideas. So moving very, very slowly, the wheels of officialdom are incredibly slow. As a self-employed guy, I never realised how slow the wheels of officialdom are. We eventually got the opportunity, James eventually got the opportunity, to put forward the project of how he wanted the dig to be done. 85 pages. I've never seen such detailed work. No wonder they take so long for everything. Their archaeology speciality is deep into it. Everything's nut and bolts and references and all the rest of it. So he tendered his idea, this thick volume, which I read every damn bit of, to Historic England, and that was in May 21. Well, we heard nothing, and then eventually we heard, nope, we can't fund your dig. Why? Too invasive. Okay, so Malcolm came up with the idea and Roy or myself came up with the idea, which we put to Anne Preston-Jones and the officials, that there's an area at the entrance which has already been disturbed. So that's not a problem to dig, because the Historic England's idea was we don't want to disturb something that's ancient as this. Well, you can do this bit, it's only little, and it's on the side, and it won't matter so much. And you could use OSL to, because I'd already read about OSL, and so had Malcolm, I'll explain what OSL is in a minute, to find out the date of it, because it was all about finding the date. A compromise was sought. The trench was permitted in the southwestern entrance. And that wonderful day, well, at last, I think we first started pushing this like about two or 3 years before. So it took a long time for it to come to fruition. The dig starts. You'll see yourselves in this, some of you. Before the dig had begun, I decided to get my oar in, just to get it written down, so that I had my point across. That when I thought the date was of it, and what I thought it was. And I sent my article, which I'd written and handed out at the time of the dig. I sent the article into Cheryl Straffen of Main Mavro, who published it the following spring. And in that I quoted, "I believe the siting and the construction of this site is unique in the British Isles and has been created for the affirmation of astronomy-based ritual. I will hopefully show in this brief proposal," and so on. So I'd got my word in, and then they got on with the dig. Nobody thought the idea was right at all. They just thought it was something else, I guess. We've begun. The first cut. The second cut. Third and fourth and fifth, and lots of cuts. So you can see now that the shape of the trench is taking shape. The idea is that this mound here, this mound was created by digging out, if you dig something out, you've got to put the soil somewhere. So when the pool was dug out, the earth was created all round the edge as a mound. Now, when that mound was put on top, that section of land no longer saw light. It became dark. And with OSL, you can take a piece of land or soil that's been in the dark, and the OSL measurement machines will tell you when that soil last experienced photons of light. Isn't technology wonderful? We hate it, but we love it as well. So that was the idea of digging this trench in to get down to where they originally covered, what the original land was down below. And with that, we can take samples of that soil and perhaps come up with a date. That was the plan. You've got James Gossip with a hat there, leading the dig. There's the beginnings of the mound being exposed. Now, what I really love about this is you can already see the careful way these stones are laid. There's a landscaper and a guy working with it. I knew that those were placed with care. They weren't just thrown over any old how and sort of arrived higgledy-piggledy. They were placed, dedicatedly. They were placed. Right, the trench has been dug. You can see how they're all pretty much levelled. When you build something up, that's what you do. You don't just, because otherwise you don't fill it and it's not solid. So that has very compacted and very solid. It had rained a bit the day before. You can see there's some white tags there. Now that's areas that are being put aside. James has chosen for different levels in time down into the trench that were to be investigated. Along comes Tim Kennard from, I think it's Aberdeen University, with his partner, his guy, and they came out onto the moor. He brought with him a huge piece of black plastic, which he put over the trench, because obviously if you're taking soil samples that are to do with light, you don't want them seeing any modern light. You want those soil samples to be pure. So when he's taking them out of the trench, he's in total darkness. He's already prepared his bits. So there he's getting his bits prepared to dig them out. Which one am I on? 34. I've moved on a bit, haven't I? The dig's going on. Everyone's noting things down. Measurements are being taken. Positions of soil samples are being taken at this point. Now in this one you can see the black area here. The black area, that's peat. That's peat that had gone onto the land a long, long, long time ago. There's Tim with his machine. So there's your OSL machine. That's the one that does the official, the starting work, shall we say. And from that he knows whether it's a good sample or not. And then it goes staffed away and it's taken off to university and they ponder over it for the next God knows how many years. There was also some core sampling done in the pool, the sedge, the marsh. That was done by another university crew. The idea was to core down into it and to see if we could get any pollen samples or anything like that. Because obviously you can get dates from the carbon of the pollen samples. You can also work out what sort of landscape was going on there, what sort of trees were growing at the time. You can learn a lot from pollen samples. There was two good friends of mine who were engaged in digging in the pit, very near the pit. They had their own little pit going. The idea was to find out what the soil was going to tell them under a standing stone that had slipped and moved. You've got Neve and Helen there who joined the dig. And I think they thoroughly enjoyed doing it, actually. It was good weather as well. It wasn't hard work, but it was great. But I came up to them and see how they were getting on, and I took a photograph of them as I was arriving. And then I took a picture of that. That was what was coming out of their trench. You don't see orbs in normal sight. You see them in camera sight. Very seldom do we see white light in any other form but in camera orb sites, unless the plasma is very strong. But what I believe is going on here is that Neve and Helen have released memory, energy, plasma, data from that point. Arthur awakening. Tamar Dowsers were along. We had an open day there, and there's Nigel, Ros and Helen, and it was very well organised by AONAB, the open day, to tell all the locals all about King Arthur's Hall, what's going on. This is a dig going on. They didn't tell us what it's about because they didn't know. That was the investigation. But it was a great thing, well attended by all the locals. There was a planetarium put up in a tent inside the village hall, which that was a film of the surround, that was all the surrounds of King Arthur's Hall, with the whole planetarium sky above, with all the various constellations. It was a really good experience. There were camera clubs up there at the hall. It was quite a good open day, really. It was all going on. There were people being taken around. There's James leading people around the site, giving them information on it. So the open day went pretty well, and then we'd finished. It was all done. And there was a bunch of happy time seekers with Roy on the left, myself, Malcolm the geophys, and Neve, and then Karen, and the two gents, I can't remember their names, I'm sorry guys. But we were sort of like the last part of the crew, and we also had to fill in. We had to fill in the holes afterwards. As Roy was the instigator of the whole thing, with myself, to get it dated, I felt it very apt that this is the final shot of that dig, was him, action man in pose.
King Arthur's Hall is a scheduled monument that's really shrouded in mystery because no one knows when it was built or why. It's been quite a dominant feature of the landscape here on Bodmin Moor for hundreds of years and quite possibly thousands. So it's a really interesting site and very unique archaeologically. It's one of the 40 sites that's included in the Cornwall Area of Outstanding Natural Beauties Monumental Improvement Project, which is really trying to ensure that sites like this are better identified and protected.
It's sometimes regarded as prehistoric because it has large stones, megaliths, but it's unlike any others. This is the one site that is impossible to classify and therefore understand, which is why it's so mysterious.
We've secured consent from the landowners and the Hamertethy Commons, as well as scheduled monument consent from Historic England and the government to carry out a small investigative excavation of King Arthur's Hall. We're going to be working with the Cornwall Archaeological Unit and a group of volunteers and specialists to try and find out a little bit more about the past of this site.
It's difficult to understand function until we understand date. So if we do get a date for the construction of the monument, that's going to really give us an indication of how it might have been used. We're excavating a series of trenches and test pits. Our principal area is going to cut across the big bank of the monument, and we hope to uncover layers within that from which we can take samples to enable a dating technique called optically stimulated luminescence, which should be able to give us a date for the sediments that built up before the monument was built and during its construction. We're working with a team from Reading University who are going to be taking cord samples from this wet area within the monument primarily to see whether there's any pollen being preserved within the peats, and by understanding how those are built up over time we'll be able to achieve an idea of past environments and how the landscape changed.
I believe it is a pound, and it sits very nicely in the centre of 1/4 of Bodmin Moor. Each of the other three you can identify a pound, but this 4th quarter doesn't have one.
The ideas I've got, which possibly to many are more esoteric, the idea of the ritual and the celebration of the moon and the stars and the connection with the earth. It's aligned north-south. It's pointing to the still point of time, the polar star. I think the north was considered by shamanistic mentalities as the place where the soul came from and departed to. Bronze Age period.
One possibility, though, is that it's not a single thing. If we can get dates from the Neolithic and then reuse in the early medieval, and then a third phase in the later medievals, then we would satisfy everybody.
So if we can understand how it was used and how old it is, that's going to help us put King Arthur's Hall back on the map a bit more in terms of its status as a scheduled monument. We'll understand how much more care and attention it needs moving into the future. We'll know how carefully it should be looked after and how we could promote its status as a really important scheduled monument.
As we dig down into the past, more and more is revealed to us. And if we could bring the mythologic stories with us and meld them with the science, then we're truly beginning to understand.
Once we've got all the results back, I'll prepare a report, and on the basis of that, that information will feed into the conservation management plan. We've got this great relationship with the local volunteers, the time seekers, so hopefully that will just provide a legacy for them to carry on, keeping an eye on the site, monitoring it into the future and giving it the care it deserves.
We've got to thank Cornwall Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, Heritage Fund, Historic England, Cornwall Council and friends. A great addition to the crew. This is the trench. This is now the technical bit. The little red blobs down here. Some very important points those are. That's where the OSL has been done. So you can see the shape of it. Very deliberately and carefully created. So they'd got their OSL samples. They'd also got their core samples. The core samples revealed a date, later Iron Age or early medieval. So the bog in the middle, which was a pool once upon a time perhaps, had dates of that period. So they could work out the landscape a bit from that period, from that dating. There were various dates suggested: early Neolithic, Bronze Age, Roman, early medieval, later medieval. There are other monuments on the moor which do, as I think, align with cosmic events. King Arthur's Hall is a north-south axis with equinoxes. It has the pole star, also very important. There are other rocks and tors on the site which were considered important, and this is James's slide from his lecture on it. And this shows in here, you've got this is at Luskernick, and that's a midsummer sunset alignment with a propped stone. So the sun is setting through the stone. So it's a ceremonial area. You know that it's been used ceremonially in the past, not just functional. King Arthur's Hall is therefore probably not just functional or an animal pound. So we get ourselves out. This is James's slide that he put up, and I was thinking that was a great idea because I'd got myself on the list along with Time Seekers and Roy and Malcolm and the whole Time Seekers crew with very famous people. John Norden, the guy that first ever wrote about King Arthur's Hall, right the way through Borlase, right the way through Peter Herring, Roy Goot, James Dow, that's my dad, and Stuart Dow, Malcolm Wright, Carolyn Kennett, James Gossip, and the professors that came along. We were added to the Hall of Fame, so I felt like blowing my trumpet a bit with that lot. There we go. The date is revealed. Middle Neolithic. I was right. Roy and I were right. We were thrilled when we heard this. Now, what this graph shows is these represent the soil samples that are listed here in a time scale. The idea that the period was circa 3,800 and 2,600 BC. Very old site. But why? Why was it built? They know its age, but why was it built? 53. To me, that's a very important clue. That's due north. There's your still point of time, that time revolves around and everything revolves around. This is a circle up north. Swineside, I think it is. It's all about the north. I came across a book. I'm going to have to read this out because I think it's amazing. This book was all about the north. I had to buy it when I was beginning to do my research, having done the dig. And it's by this guy called Gyrus. I've no idea who he is. It's his pen name. And I didn't know I was going to come across this book. It's one of those lucky coincidences. In it, he said, "The Great Bear constellation is one of the northern sky's mainstays. Despite the fact that it is only on the latitudes of the southern Europe that the plough becomes truly circumpolar, i.e. it never actually sets behind the northern horizon, this pattern consistently draws attention to the northern hub of the sky. Even when no bright star marks it, it may have acted as a kind of visual flag for early humans to the fact of the sky's pivoted structure. And as cosmologies gradually began to focus more on the sky and emphasize the sky's separateness, the accompanying images of a central axis linking Earth and heaven, a cosmic stopgap, a foundation for orientation. Now that would have become crystallized around the celestial pole. The cult of the bear, a creature shrouded with lore around the northern hemisphere, clearly has deep roots stretching back to the Stone Ages. The animal is often associated with ancestor spirits. Perhaps their uncanny habit of sometimes walking upright led people to imbue them with human qualities. Some have argued, based on disputed discoveries of cave bear shrines in Europe, that reverence for this beast even extended to our doomed cousins, the Neanderthals. The great esteem with which is held in such a wide distribution of indigenous cultures, the Ainu in Japan, the Native Americans, the Sami, the Finns, the Scandinavians, the Eskimos, are among others, hint at a deep, long understanding that spiritual relationship. But despite some notable exceptions, the Paleolithic art of our ancestors demonstrates little emphasis on the bear. It is rather the widespread association between the bear and the 7 stars of the north that secures the great age of the bear cult. Alongside the wide and deep coupling between the 7 stars, which is the image of the bear, many traditions have evolved around the plough, suggest powerful ties to mysteries of creation and death, of otherworldly power, of celestial voyages, figuring the north as a liminal point of access to distant source of luminosity. In North America, Lakota midwives, shamanic figures whose powers are seen to originate in the stars, pray during delivery to the birth woman, a stellar spirit who emerges from a hole in the sky inside the plough's blade. Besides aiding the baby's spirit into entering this world, the birth woman also guides the souls after death back through this circumpolar orifice. So the name of Arthur, that King Arthur was known as the bear in antiquity, is not surprising. The name itself means bear. The Brythonic languages, which is a Latinized version of the Old British tongue, is still in use today in modern Welsh, where Arthur means bear. Look to the skies. The great bear holds the key to the north, the cosmic portal. Bit of a pun, but you have to bear me out on that one. Getting one's bearings. So what you can see here, the saucepan or the plough, which is the bear. Now, no matter where it is in the sky, because it revolves, these 2 stars always point to the center point to north. The 7 stars to find the true north. All the way through the year, the bear rotates around And as you can see, it's always pointing to those 7 stars of the Bear. Arcturus is further down here, but the Great Bear is the gateway into the north. There's an early medieval tile or a window. I'm not quite sure whether it was a glass-stained window or whatever. But in this here, you can see there's a bear and a chain and a tree. The tree is the pole. He is chained to the pole, the north. He rotates all the way around, all the way through the year. So that early medieval symbolism is actually talking about star law. It's in other cultures as well. For ancient peoples, the sky, and in particular the celestial pole, was a point of centre and or of origin of things, and also the ultimate guide and source for solace for humans when they're astray, alone, or otherwise insecure in the world. The northern celestial pole seems to have served as either a font or a seat of the perceived or projected universal high power. And as you can see, that the pyramid has got lots of alignments to the north. The square base of the pyramid then appears to recreate the polar quadrilateral, with the peak of the pyramid symbolising the pole. In passing, we may note that this Egyptian formulation of belief, centering on the pole, is remarkably similar to the Shang Chinese concepts of the high god Di and Shang, kings with a relationship, incidentally, that bring spirit and light. You might recognise that place, and that's quite well known. I think it's Stonehenge, is it called? Something like that. So yeah, there's Stonehenge, and we know that that's to do with the midsummer sunset and the midsummer sunrise and all that sort of thing. And there's people go there every year and get stoned, and they have a party, and they watch the midsummer sun come up. It's also very important to the midwinter sunset, the alignments. Now, in this, you can see various alignments. In Stonehenge, those are the famous bits we all know. Before they were placed, they were brought from local, there were some stones from Preseli were brought in, called the blue stones. Some of them were moved into there later on. There were pits found in the early archaeology, and there were 4 points found which were very, very definitely marked out. Those are called the station stones. They're stations because from that you can work out all sorts of alignments. You can work out the moonrise, the midsummer sunrise, the moonset set, the midwinter sunset. It's all in there, just in this rectangle. And the rectangle's dimensions are 5 by 12. Now that could be whatever you want it to be. It could be wheelbarrows, it could be dinosaurs, but it's 5 of each by 12 of each. And the diagonal is 13. And that is called the lunation triangle. The lunation triangle, you can do it with a piece of rope. If you put the segments out, 5, then take it to 12, and then do it back to 13, with subdivisions matching those. I don't know how to do it myself, but it's been worked out by Robin Heath, a friend of Paul Broadhurst's, that you can work out eclipses with that piece of rope. So it's very, very important, 5, 12, 13. Very important. As you can see in the slide there, it's also the Stonehenge-Lundy-Preseli alignment. That Stonehenge, no, which way? That would be Stonehenge, that would be Lundy, and that's Preseli, and that would be back. So the 5, 12, 13, all the way from Stonehenge to Lundy Island, up to Preseli, where the blue stones come from, and back again. It's also in other sites. It's in London, Cardiff, and Edinburgh. Exactly the same dimensions. Our capital cities are exactly the same dimensions. The Temple of Jerusalem is exactly the same. Stonehenge, Lundy and Castle Door, which we all know is a local site here, that's also locked into the system, and it's part of this system. So King Arthur's Hall's got quite a lot going for it. It's quite important because it's got the same dimensions. It's a lunation triangle. This was discovered by Robin Heath when Paul Broadhurst took him up there, and it was published, his information was published in the book that I'd read earlier on. So I had a bit of inside information about how special King Arthur's Hall was. It had a lunation triangle in it. So it's therefore a bit of an old site. There's other sites as well in Brittany, Crucanu, the Quadrilateral, that are also square, because the archaeologists are always thinking, well, they're not circles, so they're not important, it doesn't matter. But these are also astronomical alignment sites. They're aligned to sunrises and sunsets and solstices and equinoxes and all that thing. It's all been worked out and checked accurately by Robin Heath. So those two sites in Brittany are not actually known about. But King Arthur's Hall wasn't known about in relationship to these. It was just an enigma. There's one in Bolivia, Tahuanacu, Calahasea. It's an amazing site. It's huge, but it's quadrilateral again. The massive stones. Now, this was pointed out to me by Howard Crowhurst, who's also very into working out alignments across the landscapes and their ancient meanings. This is an archive photo. Unfortunately, later archaeologists have decided that it must have been a wall. So they filled them all in. Okay, there are some cosmic alignments at King Arthur's Hall. This is from a book I got hold of called The Megalithic Odyssey. And Christian O'Brien should be greatly respected. And if you get hold of this book, buy it, because it'll take you over the moor with a new understanding. You'll find out why a cairn is where it is, why a site is where it is. In King Arthur's Hall, he worked out that you could see the midsummer sunrise over Brownwilly, the midsummer sunset over Case Hill Downs, the midwinter moonrise, maximum at Garrow Downs, the midsummer moonrise, minimum shallow water common. So what came first? Those sites or King Arthur's Hall? Did they put King Arthur's Hall down and then go, oh, where's the midsummer sun going to rise? Oh, great, it's Brownwilly. What a coincidence. No, I think it was all acknowledged very carefully before they established things. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew an awful lot more than we give them credit. And I think it's now time to give our ancestors a lot more credit. So Helen and I went up on midsummer solstice. We were lucky enough to watch the sun set. Now this is Helen standing in the southeastern corner, and on the western side of King Arthur's Hall, there's one stone that's more pointy than the rest. And everyone thinks, oh, that's an interesting stone. Well, that stone aligns exactly with midsummer sunset. So that's not just a habit, just a pointy stone. That's got a purpose. And there's the sun setting. But, okay, so we now know it's astrological, but why is it a pool? Why is it a pond? Surely that's ridiculous, you know. There's a book that I got hold of through Emma Ellen, who was also a time seeker. She sent me this book to have a look at because she said, Stuart, this will interest you. And in it was, in 1915, Mr. Baring Gould excavated the site with the aid of a local farmer, but discovered nothing at all except the surprising fact that about 6 or 7 foot down below ground level of the hall is completely paved with smooth granite slabs. It's got a level floor. It's not bedrock all over the place. It's got a level floor. This floor has no system of drainage, and no entrance could be discovered. So the hall remains a mystery. Who built it? Why did he build it? These are matters of sheer conjecture. Local tradition claims that it was originally a church. Maybe. Its springs have been extensively dowsed, as we now know, and we did at the time and have done since. And the water is deep golden water. I think it's what Maria Wheatley calls, is it yin? Yin water. So it's very pure, very deep, very healing water. 50% found that the water of the spring had 5 fountains, fonts, and in more detailed dowsing, the water had been found to be healing. Norden, that's that chap that I told you about earlier. This wonderful guy here, in Henry VIII's period, almost, I think it was a little bit after that, he wrote, it was described as a place whereunto King Arthur resorted. But Norden offers no authority on the statement. Well, says this chap in the other book that I just showed you, that King Arthur's Hall is a rectangular earthwork, 159 feet by 66 feet, and was made by scooping out the interior. There is no ditch outside, but the inner wall was once supported by a row of upright stones of slabs of granite. Most of these have fallen down, but the stange is still there, and unless it was meant to hold water, it must be at least as old as Bronze Age. There is no fosse, there are no traces of a road leading to it, although I have read of an ancient trackway. Now, this was written in 1948, by the way. It was not a crematorium. There was not a single bit of charcoal had been found in that dig. It could scarcely have been a cattle pound. They knew that back then. Situated as it was on the high moor, 870 feet above sea level, and is now only a dangerous catch pit for water, with a boggy deposit impossible to cross. A trap for moorland horses, one of which was drowned there recently as 1935. So this guy was aware of previous stuff, and he knew that it wasn't a animal pound. It was level. I got a book from Maria Wheatley called Secret History of Stonehenge, which I really thoroughly recommend you get. It's wonderful on Stonehenge, but there's also other stuff in it. Because Maria is such a good dowser, she'd been to a place called the Assyrian in Egypt during one of her trips out there. And she found at the Assyrian that there was the most incredible multiple geospiral there. You see it's a rectangular site, same as King Arthur's Hall. It's 15 metres deep, the water there. It's, again, healing water. It's aligned with Deneb, Cygnus, and also the circumpolar stars. Osiris is the god of resurrection, thus healing. It's the energy of the waters, it's a healing energy. The Egyptians knew that. They later put an Abydos temple through there, and this was almost forgotten about until it was dug by a lady archaeologist working for another guy, and she said, I think I want to follow this way, and she discovered this. So I think she was probably using a bit of dowsing or intuition as well, and this became an enigma for them until they started realizing that the water was not coming from the Nile, it was coming from deep elsewhere, and they're still talking about it themselves. They're not quite sure and what it is. But they do know, or Maria knows, we know, that it has incredibly healing energy to it. The energy of the waters. As Vida Austin said, now back to Arcturus. The time when Arcturus was its most northerly was in 2330 BCE. And from this, it is possible to conject that the date of the setting out of this north-aligned site of King Arthur's Hall to honour accurately the cosmos was therefore sometime around 2300 BC. This was the workings out I was going through at the time, and I stated in my article in Mem Mamvro, I believe that the sanctity of water, essential to all life, was highly respected and that water was honoured. Even now we still throw votive coins into springs and wells to combine the water to the sun, the moon and the stars in such a site would enable a ritual to honour and gain potency for all those involved. Imagine circling the pool. A number of times, perhaps, with the reflections of the stars above, and then immersing oneself in that sacred shimmering pool of water and becoming one with the waters and with the heavens above. As above, so below, an interconnectivity, a sky mirror, and you're immersed in it. Surely that's a nice place to be. You can see here how Arcturus is the gateway to the Bear. So it's a very important star. And all that, and that one leads to the north. I was just about to tie up this thing for the talk, and I thought I need a picture of a shimmering pool of water with sky, with stars above it. So I Google on and I find, pictures are great. That's a nice looking picture. Tapped on it. It was a website. And this website told me all about this place in Sicily called the Kothon, which they'd done an excavation at in 2022. Now, it was originally thought that it was a harbour by the archaeologists. For a long time, they thought it was a military harbour, once identified. But it's actually one of the largest sacred pools in the Mediterranean. The lake was aligned with the stars as the centrepiece of a massive religious sanctuary. This finding was made on the island city of Motia, which was once a bustling Phoenician port. The pool was improved around 550 BC. The basin was rediscovered in the 1920s. For a century, it was thought that it was a harbour, but new excavations have drastically changed its interpretation. It was a sacred pool at the centre of a huge religious compound. The reflecting surfaces of pools, said Professor Nigra, could be used for astronomical observations by using poles to mark the positions of stars reflected in the water, allowing the observation and measurement of all the celestial bodies and their angles relative to the horizon. The constellations and their positions in the night sky on significant dates, such as solstices and equinoxes, are mirrored in the alignments of the main structures at the site as well as through the sacred features. The stars and constellations were regarded by the Phoenicians as gods and sacred ancestors. Foremost of theirs was Baal, who was represented by the constellation Orion. Votive offerings and pedestal in the centre was found. The pedestal was an actual on it was a statue of Baal, who is also known as Osiris, as Orion. So we've got the Osiris, Orion, and Arthur and North all wrapped up in the same story. That's how it looked at night. All the reflections, the shimmering pool with the stars above, a sky mirror, sacred waters in alignment. Yeah. It's a beautiful photo, isn't it? So there would have been religious temples all the way around that. But the whole device is the same. It's a rectangle design for using water, using the sky, using alignments, using geography, using navigation. The Phoenician sailors would come and check where the stars were. And go, okay, so we'll sail that way tonight. Thus, I believe that King Arthur's Hall is a cosmic water temple. Oh, to bathe in its waters at night under a starry cosmos. So, what do you think King Arthur's Hall used to be? Swimming pool? That was written by a kid at the exhibition at St. Breward a long time ago. That kid knew what they were saying. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you ever so much, Stuart. What a journey you've taken us on. It's a massive quest, isn't it? And just so much learned along the way. Plus, it naturally tunes into your passions, you know, digging from such a young
Yeah,
age.
yeah.
And do you want to mention about Paul Broadhurst? Because it feels like it's just there was a quick little.
There's a certain synchronicity going on. Yes, yes. Having finished the talk, worked it all out, done all the slides. I've every now and again I've been in touch with Paul Broadhurst, and he's phoned up and said, "Oh, are you in?" I went, "Yeah, I'm in. I'll come over." When his shop's closed, and he comes in, and we have a long chat about conspiracies and everything, and all sorts of things. Well, having just finished all my notes, I get a phone call. "Paul, this is a bit synchronous." "Yeah, come over." So Paul was able to be present as the talk was birthed. And I find that incredibly synchronous. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Thank you, Stuart. And I'm just curious about what people found when, Helen, you very gently and gracefully guided us on the journey to King Arthur's Hall. Would anyone like to share anything that they found? Yes, yes.
Okay, you hold that. Thank you. I saw the pool, and within the pool, I saw what I first thought was 3 snakes, but they came and they weaved together like a plait, like a Celtic knot kind of plait. And they were red, white, and blue. And I then got a body sensation that they were actually part of my arterial blood system, my venal blood system, and my lymphatic system. So it was like a body healing within the pool. It then went from there to 3 flames, which were pink, yellow, and turquoise flames of light. And that was the light body healing. And I had the words in my head, "We 3 build." And then at the very end, when we were coming out, the words came to into my mind, "Even a small dragon is no less a dragon."
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was fascinating. That was really fascinating. Yes.
Links in very much, doesn't it?
Yes. And it being a cosmic water temple with healing waters and the grace that comes with that. Thank you. Anyone else want to? Cora, would you like to come forward and hold the mic? Thank you.
I was just...
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Do I press something?
Just hold it.
Okay. Yeah, right at the beginning, before you mentioned Arcturus, I was picking up that you perhaps have Arcturian ancestry, sort of as a star system. Really? And then it came to me, Arcturus and Arthur, there's a link and connection between those 2 words as well. So the spiritual leader being the Arthurian. And what I was picking up during it was duality. I was seeing like a man with black skin wearing white clothes and getting the impression of going into the water, so being dark and nighttime, and coming up into the fire with the fire all around. So it's sort of coming from dark to light. So that sort of spiritual healing.
Yeah.
So that was very prominent, what I was picking up with the spiritual healing. But also that you possibly were there during that ceremony, and you could have been a spiritual leader at that time.
I might have been.
I think you probably were.
Thank you, Cora. And that's interesting, sharing with the fire connection as well.
Yeah, that was very powerful.
Thank you very much. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else got any ideas on what came to you when you disappeared into that place?
Anyone else? Yes, David.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you just hold it like that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, a long time ago I said it was a pool for keeping fish in, so that local people could have fish, but it's not quite true, is it? I dowsed simply on the date, and it was 2,800 years BC.
Right.
And the Shining Ones, who I'm very popular and very familiar with, came and helped at that date. So they were involved in the construction there of that place. So,
I feel that too.
okay, good.
Thank you, David. The shining ones as well. Yes, Cora, did you want to...
Yes, I just was remembering.
Yes.
The shining ones. I had a past life regression once by the toothed Dana, and I was told that they come from the north. And I always
Wow, the
wondered-
shining ones coming from the north.
Yeah, so because in that past life regression, I was married to this guy and he had this pure glowing white skin with these bright blue eyes, and we were all quite Celtic looking. And I was told, and I saw them in a ship coming from the north. But you saying, I imagined it was a place, but from the stars, I think that's a stargate. Perhaps that's what they were meaning, rather than just the northern hemisphere. Because the north.
I think they're from outside somewhere, yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Anyone else want to bring anything else to what we've unlocked? Okay, I think we are at a close. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for coming today. What a thought-provoking and also illuminating and mysterious sort of journey we've all been on. And thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Really
Thank
lovely.
you very
Thank
much
you.
for coming and surviving the tempest.